I don't know that I do know. This is not necessarily a celebratory holiday, right? Or anniversary, I should say. But it is, Rob, the 1-year anniversary of when sports in America stopped. And you and I were actually doing the show. Remember, it was the Utah Jazz and the Oklahoma City Thunder.
We remember
preparing to play. Yep, we were in the studio together in L.A. and the game was paused, and referees were talking, and players were getting taken off the court, and next thing we know, life as we knew it changed. And I think honestly, Rob, at that point, most people weren't really taking the coronavirus that seriously. I know the first time I actually, I'll go back on Valentine's Day. My wife and I, we hung out in the hotel the whole weekend in New York City. And Valentine's Day weekend, I remember seeing on like CNN and stuff, and they were talking about the coronavirus. And it was overseas, and I didn't pay much attention to it. I heard it and saw what they were saying, but I wasn't really worried about it or anything like that. And then I guess it was a few weeks later, Rob, I read an article where experts, or at least a few experts, had predicted, they projected that if this is not handled and dealt with, their numbers, and this is, before March of last year, they said you could see over around 450,000 people could die. And then, of course, they had the infection numbers that were even higher. And that's when I started saying, this thing is actually serious. I wasn't scared yet, but it was like, man, that it could be that bad. And obviously it has been that bad. And so I think a lot of people started taking, I'll give you the last thing I'll say about that, Rob. When I talked to a Lakers player the night that they canceled, the games, and he thought it would be like 2 weeks.
Really? He didn't read up on it, did he?
No, I guess not. He said he thought it was going to be a 2 to 3 week, break, if you will, and then they'd be back at it. At that point, I was like, I think it's going to be longer than that. But obviously he was wrong. But yeah, those are my initial memories, Rob, when this thing went down.
Mine are different because I was on a cruise. And I was on the Golden Girls cruise exactly a year ago. And on the cruise, we were using
with the show though.
I came back.
Before?
Right. That was
after the show. After the cruise.
Yes. Because I was there. I remember when that happened.
Yeah, I remember you were there. Right. Okay.
But I was on the cruise and we were using hand sanitizer everywhere, but we didn't have masks. It hadn't reached that point. But as we were going to get off back in Miami where we started, I was like, I was like, okay, are they going to let us off? Are they going to let us off the boat? I wasn't positive.
Is that because you had heard that there was
what was going on?
Yeah, okay.
Yes, and it was about cruise ships, right? So I was like, so when we got there, not only did we just get our luggage, they didn't ask us any questions, they didn't test us, nothing. I just got my bags, got in a cab, and headed to the airport to fly to New York. And so I thought I just missed it. I think had this cruise been a week or two later, you know what I mean? I might have been stuck on that boat for months or for a while. So I got fortunate, and nobody, as far as I know, got it, or nobody was sick on the ship. It hadn't reached that point yet.
So it didn't negatively impact the cruise at all?
Not at all. It was right before that. So we were able to go have a nice 4 or 5 day cruise and not have any issues. There was no, oh my God, is somebody sick, contaminated? Right. And you remember, we eating buffets, so everybody's all over the food.
Right.
So that could have really been a mess.
It's good you didn't get it. Yeah.
And thank God, knock on wood, everything worked out. So things have changed a lot, but I would say this. The one thing that I am surprised about is after we lost sports, I thought there would be a resurgence because, American sports crazy. Yeah, just that America's sports crazy, probably more so than any other nation. People like the national stuff, national soccer team, national hockey team for some countries or whatever, but not like the localized like we have.
Right.
And I thought that people would flock back. And it hasn't rebounded. It really hasn't. And it's just interesting to me that when sports did come back, fans didn't come back in the droves that I thought they would.
Well, to your point, Rob, sports TV ratings across all sports are down 25%.
That's incredible.
And that's the most out of any genre of television. So sitcoms, news, dramas, daytime talk TV shows, none of them are down as much as sports. And what's up is the news. TV news ratings are up 31%.
Well, so we had a big election, so we get that, right? It was a big election. A lot of people were interested in it. We also saw the Black Lives Matter all unfold on our television sets, right? People out in the streets, statues coming down, companies changing the name of products. I mean, we saw the George Floyd killing on television. You know what I mean? Like, Chris, there was a lot to watch news-wise where I could see why it was so high.
Where you had to watch. And I also think even now people are still obviously concerned about the virus. Or, I think that's why news remains up even after the election and after a lot of the protesting has died down and stuff like that. But I'm with you, Rob. I mean, I guess I understand it from the standpoint of there's so many other serious things going on. What you just mentioned, that you would think it would have an impact on sports. But I'm with you in that I'm surprised that it's down the way it is. I mean,
that's big. That's big. 25%. That's big.
Right. And we always talk about sports as this distraction, right? It keeps us away from the troubles of real life. Well, there's no more time, you'd want something to kind of keep you away from, what's going on out there than now. And yet it is down. And I'm with you. It's surprising. I remember, I think back to, I don't know how many months we went without sports where we were doing the show.
It seemed like about 2 or 3 months, right? Like 3 months without a game.
Yeah. So we went, March? Yeah, March,
April, May,
June, July.
Maybe 4 months.
Maybe more. Yeah, maybe about 4 months. And yeah, because I think basketball started late July is when they went back to camp, July 30th maybe. But anyway, you remember, Rob, it was like something like The Last Dance. That was huge. And we would talk until Wednesday about The Last Dance. You know what I mean?
And we didn't want to watch. We had to save it for every Sunday because you didn't want to watch the whole thing and then not have anything to watch. So it became like appointment television like we used to watch before we had the VCRs and all that, where you had to wait and watch that show. So those got great numbers. Remember that? Those
did phenomenally.
Phenomenal. But when the events came back, it was interesting that people didn't come back in the same numbers. I'll be curious to hear if people's viewing habits have changed. Is it because of the coronavirus and how life has changed? It's harder for me to watch I turn away from blowouts. If it's like not a good game, where maybe before I still might watch it, I'm quicker to turn away from bad games than ever before.
For me, I'm going to be honest, it has not affected my viewership of pro sports. I was still all in on the NFL every Sunday, man. I was just into it. Baseball, I was into the playoffs. And then basketball, I mean, obviously I analyzed that on TV, but beyond that, I'm into it. I'm still watching the games. It really hasn't changed for me. What's changed, Rob? College sports. I think, and I'm not just going to blame it on that they're college kids. I just think the disjointed nature of the season, it just seemed like there wasn't as much rhythm to that as to the NBA.
Well, college football was all over the place.
Right.
Yeah,
it was so hard to follow. And basketball, and we're going to get into some of this later, I haven't really been able to get into basketball. And so
and we're in the
college
March
basketball
Madness
is what-
already. Just
right.
think about that. You
Are
couldn't get
you
into it. The
excited?
season's
I mean,
over. Right.
Right. It's like, and I'm not. There have been years before like this for me with March Madness, but yeah, I'm not excited about it. I mean, I'll get into it once it starts, but so for me, it's been college basketball, not so much pro. So, how has the pandemic changed your viewing habits as far as sports? And sports viewership is way down, folks, 25% across the board. Do you think this will continue? Or is this just a blip on the radar screen because of the pandemic? Your turn to weigh in with Chris and Rob, the Odd Couple.
All right, let's start with Taylor in New Orleans. You're on the Odd Couple, Fox Sports Radio. What you got?
How y'all doing?
Doing good.
Good, man. How are you?
I'm good. My viewing habits, I think, would have been changed for good because you got to think about when right before this happened, we had, Kobe Bryant's passing, so that had a lot of people glued to the TV. But once the pandemic hit, so many real-world things were going on that we had this surreal realization of our own mortality. Like the things like those distractions, sports, it wasn't important anymore. I'm in New Orleans, which is the deep south. You can read into that any way you want to, but a lot of stuff was going on. So it's like we got appreciation just for going outside in nature, like, because it was like, man, this is real. We could die. Like, so right. Watching that, then watching my, brothers and sisters being protesting, violence and being victims of violence, victimized. It was like, man, so much is going on. I don't want to be distracted anymore. And I guess, for the lack of better terms, that's what, woke and all, but I don't feed in all of that.
But Taylor, that all makes sense what you're saying. I don't disagree or discount what you're saying. I think that's real. I think a lot of people got shook.
So it's like the unveiling. Go ahead.
Nah, go ahead. I hear you. I agree with what you're saying. We'll see if you keep that up. And I'd say that for a lot of people, not pointing you out, but you may feel differently in a couple years and get back to normal. But we'll see. We will see.
And I think maybe we won't know that until life feels like normal again. Do you know what I mean? Like yep. I still think that. All right, Mike in South Dakota, you're on the Odd Couple, Fox Sports Radio. What's up, Mike?
Not much. How are you guys? Thanks for getting me in.
Yes, sir.
Good to have you.
Yeah, I've always watched sports my whole life, and this last year I've never watched probably less sports, and I think it is a habitual thing as humans. We just kind of get in doing different things, and I'll agree with the caller before. There's a lot of stuff going on, but I also was one that really got out into nature and hiking and doing a lot of stuff outside, and just haven't watched as much. And I actually think just because of that habit that it might continue a little bit also.
Yeah.
Look, you find other things to do. You know what I mean? And you find, look, like your life can be just as good as it was when you're sitting in front of the TV watching sports. Rob, we didn't used to watch sports this much.
It wasn't on. It wasn't on like that. We didn't have. We were thankful. I know this is hey, you kids, get off my lawn. We used to look at the TV guide to see what games were on this week. It wasn't. Every game wasn't on. So if I'm growing up in New York, if a Knicks game was on or a Mets game was on Channel 9, I'm watching it because it might be the only game the entire series or the entire week. Every game was not on, so it was appointment watch. And now you can watch everything. I could keep up with it on my phone. I don't have to watch television.
You can find out everything that happened on your phone, on the highlights and everything. So, I hear you. I think we've talked about it with college basketball, oversaturation.
Right.
And it could be
it's
that
not special.
It goes beyond college sports. Right.
Dre in Michigan, you're on the Odd Couple, Fox Sports Radio. What's up, Dre?
What it do, peoples?
What it do, man? It do what it do.
I'm doing good. It does what it does. I know that's right. Hey, I got a quick suggestion, man. Can we get a Celebrity Corner podcast where y'all finish these interviews, man? I'm still waiting on that Spencer Haywood second part, and then that Gladys Knight interview was real great too, man. Y'all need to extend that a little bit, bro, for real.
You could do that, actually. That's an idea.
That's a good idea.
Put that in the idea box. Yes.
Thank you. I appreciate it. But as far as this pandemic, I know for me, like I told Rob, man, I spent probably about $3,000 in power tools ever since this COVID. Because now all I do is build, man. I done got into gardening. all different type of things, because now I don't think I'm going back, because now I found better things to do with my time. I can't just sit and watch a game all day, because I'm like, I could be doing this or I could be doing that. Let me go do this. And I think that's what affected a lot of this stuff, because you start to really find out what's really important in life, like spending time with your family and kids. I work a lot, so I can't sit down and watch 3 hours of a game. I'm like, I can go play with my kids and go have some fun, do that. So I think that's what's having an effect on the ratings and things like that.
That's real.
Cool. Yeah.
Rob, I'm going to tell you this, and I think I bet you feel the same way. I got a lot accomplished during the time that sports weren't being played. I was able to clean rooms, redo rooms, clean the attic. I mean, because there was no sports on.
Right.
And I was just doing stuff. You know what I mean?
I did the same thing. I threw out papers and took stuff to the Salvation Army, and I just went on and on and on. I mean, I've never been this organized and this uncluttered in my life. I utilized that time. I didn't let it just come and go to where I was sitting on the couch watching movies 24/7. I did not do that.